Hey, the cycling season is finite. It's over, but we're going to recap the Vuelta a España. Look, the Vuelta comes down to the last mountain stage, a lot of high drama, bonus seconds. That's kind of the thing that pushed one of the guys over the top. We're not going to have any spoilers. Does Roglic fade in the last week of a Grand Tour? We'll talk about that. Tactics. The Jumbo and Movistar editions of those. Women finished their season in Madrid Challenge, and did Quanta Quickstep get their 100th Grand Tour win? All coming up. Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 211. Welcome, everybody. It's November 9th. 2020. It's been a crazy year. Look, people are mourning and they're celebrating today the end of the cycling season. Nothing else. There's nothing else going on in the world, but that's all we have here. So welcome, everybody. And once again, we're live on our YouTube and Facebook and Twitter pages. So I thought we'd just do a quick recap. Just got out of court, and people are effing crazy. That's all I got to say about that. Join in and view it on YouTube. We stream YouTube court in there as well. The Vuelta, stage 17, Saturday, Segueros to Alta de la Covatilla, 178.2 kilometers, a Cat 1, a Cat 3, and let's actually share the screen here so we can take a look at the profile. Cat 1, a Cat 3, a Cat 3, a Cat 3, a sprint point in the between there, a Cat 2, a little 1, I don't know what that is there, and then a HC or a Especial category climb over the top to the Covatilla. It was roughly 11 or so kilometers, and a barn burner. Going into this, maybe we'll recap what the actual positions were going into stage 17 on GC. I don't know, spoiler there if you saw that there. Roglic, 45 seconds over Carapaz, 53 seconds over Hugh Carthy, Dan Martin at 148, Enric Mas at 329, and Wout Poels there at 6. You don't really care. He's at 6th place, 6 minutes down. Grossschartner 7:20 down, Valverde at 8th at 8:45, and obviously it was going to be quite an interesting little spat we had going into the final stage. I mean, you had let's take a look at let's just go. So really, it comes down to the last 11.7 kilometers on the stage. And the climb up to Alta de la Covatilla, 1,959 meters at 6.9%. It's wide open landscape. It allows a lot of wind coming in there. Wind does play a factor. Steeper sections start at about 4 kilometers in. They stretch to about the 2.7, where you get a slight respite there before it tips down. And then the last 1.7 goes back up before the last 400 or 500 meters. Kind of a little more of it doesn't go downhill, but it's just more of a shallow finish into the 0.7 kilometers there. We saw American Ben King win here in 2018. He had 2 stages that year for Quebec. Good for him. We're obviously proud of how he did. I didn't really see, he had a child lately, so we didn't really see him doing much racing after the pandemic. A big group got up the road. I think it was maybe in the Tour, though. So we had a big group. They get up the road, bad weather, fog, everything going into the mix here. One Jumbo Visma rider made the break, Leonard Hofstetter. That kind of goes against all the tactics you see, and we'll talk about tactics specifically about Jumbo Visma. But you don't see them, sending that rider up the road. That's a Movistar move. Send someone up the road, they hook up to him later, and that person, does a lot of work for him. So Hofstetter gets up the road. There's some debate and we'll get into tactics later on here, but there's some debate as to whether that was the smart move or not for Jumbo Visma. Well, as it happened, we were given 2 races within a race, because by the bottom of the climb, 3+ minutes, that group did not get caught by the leaders and the GC group. So you had David Gaudu in there. Well, right before that, Marc Soler on the penultimate climb, he ends up bridging up about 3 minutes to the group, and he joins them right at the bottom base of the climb. Nilson Oliveira, his teammate, had helped him get up there. And then he looked like he wasn't quite ready to hang on because you ended up started having Gaudu, you had Izagirre, some of these other guys, Mater, the NTT rider, they started shelling him out. Soler's not looking good. My first question on Soler going up the road is he doing this for his benefit, or is he doing this for the team benefit, And, well, maybe it's all of the above. But back in the GC, well, let's just finish off what happens in the front. Gaudu a week prior to this on a Saturday had been in a little bit of a duel with Marc Soler, and he won on the Saturday. Outkicked him, and that's where Soler was kind of going for some time. We talked about that kind of weird tactic. Was he going for time? Was he going for the stage win? He's going for both. Remember, he won, stage 2 of this Vuelta already? So Gudo goes up the road. Actually, Izagiri goes up the road. Gudo goes up to him and then just goes through him, and he looked really good and gets his second win on the Vuelta 1 week after the first one. A 24, I think, year old Frenchman. Looks real good going up the hill. And, that's Thibaut Pinot's teammate. We'll see if maybe there'll be a change in the guard as far as what that team has for coming up for the next year. However, back in the GC group, Soler is no longer in there. He's up the road. You don't have Leonard Hofstetter in that group. He's up the road. He's not a climber per se, so he's a guy that can help out. He's not a Robert Hessink, so he's just a shallow, a little bit, not Vingegaard. He's not Bennett. He's not Sepp Kuss. He's not Roglic. So he's up the road, and he's not going to win the stage, and he doesn't. But back in the group, you've got the GC group. They come into the bottom of the climb, and you start to see Bora, Aid Schelling, start to hit the front and putting on a huge turn of pace. Ostensibly, this is for Felix Grossschartner, I imagine. Jumbo, they're setting up behind him with Bennett and Sepp. Appearing to be going well. However, soon Bennett getting dropped without even taking a pole. He's off there, and then you just have Roglic sitting on the wheel of Sepp Kuss, who's sitting on the wheel of Aid Schelling. Schelling kind of puts in the turn too hard, and he kind of creates some gaps at the front, but no one cares because his teammate, 7th place there. He's way deep on the overall. I think he's just trying to consolidate his 10th place. Not really sure exactly why Schelling was putting out the work. Maybe he'd made a deal with one of the other teams. Either way, you're not seeing Sepp take the front for a ways. Vlasov, he's in the group there with Firstana. He attacks about 4.3 to go. They let him go. Schelling still isn't done until about 3.5. That's when he's taken. Sepp takes over the mantle, a normal spot at the front, and he's on there for about half a kilometer. Looks fine. Remember, it's really windy. They've been up in the fog, and now they're starting to crest out through to get a little sunshine. And as he breaks through, Carthy then attacks with about 3K to go. We'll talk about the strategy here later about timing of their attacks. 3K, Carthy attacks. He looks really good. Sepp tries to accelerate to close the gap, and soon he's like throwing the elbow out, letting Roglic know he can't do it. And Roglic comes back. This is the first time you've really seen Sepp with a pain face like that. I mean, he didn't just peel off because his team leader had basically, you see this sometimes Roglic the last kilometer or so, there's attacking going, and Sepp's been closing things down, and then he just sits up and he's good. This was different. He's elbowing, hey, I'm not going to be able to, you're going to have to pull through, and Roglic had to dig pretty deep to kind of get there, but he looked fine. Then you have, then you have about 2.7 Roglic, Enric Mas decides to take off and do a little of attack. Once again, you had 3 kilometers, Carthy, Carapaz, Roglic has had to go. It looked, obviously it was a very hard dig because, like I said, Sepp wasn't able to do it. And then just a few kilometers later, or 0.3 of a kilometer, Enric Mas takes this up. And this is kind of where everything just gets set to the wind, and the drama basically ensues from there. Vlasov gets caught. Carthy goes with him. Carapaz goes with him. And then it's a big fight because Carapaz decides he's going to just go on up the road himself, and he does a blistering attack. And his move instantly creates a gap. You see the only Roglic is really the one that tries to dig it and go with it, but he's not able to close it. And then he's just kind of like, well, I guess I'm going to have to just do my thing here. Once again, a lot of wind out there. So wind plays a part in climbs in a few different ways. One, when you're out alone and you start to die, the wind can really make a strong thing. But sometimes when you're in a group, climbers prefer a tailwind because you just get to sit on, and it kind of makes a difference. But Roglic wasn't able to close this gap. Now he's in the wind, he needs to be exposed, and he's got to basically do this fight on his own. From there, look, he's got Hofstetter up the road, and he looks like he's suffering. He's kind of conglomerates with Hugh Carthy. He's got Enric Mas. The next thing you know, they're kind of like, who's taking the front? Then you have Carthy taking off up the road. Roglic then connects with Hofstetter, and the road just happened to pitch down a little bit. He gets on his wheel, and he does some fine work for him. I think the biggest thing that Hofstetter actually did for him there was shield him from the wind. He's able to shield him a little bit. not put him in the gutter. It almost looked like he was doing it because he had Enric Mas and Soler who we were connected up with. Next thing you know, Hofstadter's gone, and the time gap went out immediately to about 20 seconds, and they got up to like 28. I think at one point he was down to, on the virtual, Carapaz was only like 13 seconds off of the win, and you're like, oh crap, it's all happening over. And you listen to the commentary, they're like, it's doing it again. I watched the live stats as well on Pro Cycling or even Cycling News, and they're like, oh, it's happening. Same thing that happened in the, you have reminiscence of a La Planche de Belfi of the time just tick, 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 and he's losing it. But he kind of ends up, he being Roglic, holding pace there after he gets rid of Hofstadter, and he's just riding with Enric Mas and Soler, who are doing some pulling. Now, once again, this is a big deal because up this climb, there's a lot of wind, he's exposed, and being able to sit on someone's wheel actually makes a difference. And this isn't like the Angliru where it's so steep, it doesn't really matter. It's more about pacing. Either way, Carapaz storms across the line, 2:35 behind Gadu. Carthy is the next at 2:50. Now, remember, we set up the road. There was Gadu wins, but then Izagiri and Mader and Izagiri get second and third, so they take all the bonus time. So there's no bonus seconds to be had for Carapaz. He comes across the line, 2:35, 2:50 for Carthy, and just 6 seconds behind Carthy was Roglic sprinting in. Does a little bit of a fist pump, knows he was won. Back-to-back winner of the Vuelta, and this Vuelta, one of the tight Vueltas we have here in the history. Very good, and we're going to talk about some tactics and see how that played out here, and I'll discuss stage 18 first. But a lot of drama. It was pretty exciting, and I mean, if you like to see races come down to the very finish, you had the Tour de France switched places on the second to last day in the time trial, which going into it was 40 some seconds. It's very similar, and then Pogacar just destroyed him. The Giro, while the overall time was a little bit of a gap there, it was you go into the last stage, two riders tied on time. That's tight, and then here, it narrows itself down where both of the podium guys to Roglic were closer after the stage than they were at the start. Stage 18, very simple. Hippodroma to De la Zura to Madrid. 125 kilometers sprint stage. There's a little break there, but lead out basically with Bora, Wittgenstein Scott, and Koenig Quickstep. They were flying, and everyone was spread out across the road. And it's, look, Ackerman had won a stage. UAE was also in the mix there. UAE had won with Philipsen, so they had him set up. Ackerman had won a stage already due to the disqualification of Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett had won. They put Koenig Quickstep over that 100 Grand Tour wins, or hit that 100 Grand Tour wins mark. He got DQ'd, so it gets set back. So this is kind of for Sam, he's like, I went, and in the end, biked off Sam Bennett for the win. So denying him a win at all. Commentary and analysis from Chris Horner. I still have not reviewed that because I wanted to make my own commentary before, and I just heard what Brian was saying to me before. I wanted to make my own commentary before I got a little bit tainted on Horner. Basically, his thing is like, look, Hofstadter's in the break. What that ended up doing then was, with him being in the break, it made Sepkus, made Bennett, it made Hessink. Remember, they're down a rider from Dumoulin not being there. It made them do more work. And this was, Dan Martin said it was the hardest stage race he's ever done. Bennett's going back, Sepkus is going back, so they were depleted to the point where when they're coming up that climb, they are not able to go. Sep's not able to go any further than 3.5K to the finish with his leader, in which typically he's there for at least another 3K, maybe 2.75, and so that makes a big deal. He would have been very useful to be able to pull there for Roglic. Now, if Roglic, the point is, Horner's saying these guys were depleted; they weren't able to go to that extent. I don't know if that's the case. But Jumbo had to have known that Hofstadter could not win the stage. I mean, he was in a group with some serious climbers. He wasn't going to be able to do it. They were in the break. They were going to drop him. And by the way, they didn't lose much time on the climb. He lost his 3 minutes of the peloton, the GC group by about 2K to go. So was having Hofstadter in the break, the proximate cause for Bennett and Sepkus to lose out and not be able to help on the climb. We saw, once again, Sepkus couldn't do anything after 3K to go. and he would been on the front for about half a kilometer. So a little tough to understand there. So was having him up the road this whole time, was that something that Jumbo may have known that they needed to? Because as it turned out, it was in the perfect position. It's a little bit of a pitch down, a little bit where Hofstadter could actually do more work for Roglic, protected him from the wind. And he, Roglic said afterwards it was a huge welcome, and he totally appreciated it and needed it at that time. Maybe Sepp Kuss, I don't know. We'd have to ask him and Bennett if they were actually going back for bottles. Maybe they were just coming to the last stage and they're like, I don't think I've got everything I need to, and we need to send one guy up the road to make sure he's there. So this is something that maybe Horner has more info, or maybe he's doing an analysis that he didn't have all the info either. I don't either. So we're just making guesses here. So maybe their strategy was reckless in putting these other guys into the position that they had to do more work, or maybe it was done in a way that they were protecting themselves, knowing the Bennett and Sepp Kuss were not going to be able to be the superstars that they have been in the past, at which point it was serendipitous and probably helped win the Tour for Roglic. Now, Movistar, they sent Soler up the road. He started the climb 3 minutes or so ahead of the GC group. The first assumption, like I said earlier, was that Soler is actually doing his own and for the glory of himself and not the team. And if you've seen the Netflix documentary from last year, you pretty much assume that that's usually the case. Very well may have been, but we don't actually know. However, he was in the perfect position to help Enric Mas in the last 2 kilometers, in which he did. And inside the last kilometer, to help Roglic, when Hofstadter was no longer available to help. Soler and Mas, were they helping Roglic? I mean, look, what's interesting is there was an interview after with Carapaz, and he said something along the fact of they were in their self-interest rather than revenge. Now, the fact that he mentioned revenge is maybe telling. Now, remember, watch the Movistar documentary on Netflix once again. He being Carapaz, wins the Giro. There's a lot of infighting there with Landa. And then he was supposed to do the Vuelta, and he didn't end up doing the Vuelta because he did some, the team was really pissed off at him. He did some race unsanctioned or something, got injured, and he'd already signed with Ineos. He was already wearing their kit. And so there's some bad blood there. So maybe they're chasing him down for that. And the fact that he referenced that in his commentary, saying, oh, no, it wasn't this, it's a little suspect. That almost makes you, the girl doth protest too much type of thing. Who knows? Either way, it didn't hurt. And look, Soler, he wanted to help Mas, I'm assuming. And Mas they had a gap on Dan Martin, and he wanted to maybe leap over him. I mean, he was in 5th place. It was a good chance for him to move into 4th place, so it was within striking distance. So it wasn't out of the ordinary, or you wouldn't think that it couldn't happen. So I tend to say fortuitous for Roglic. Teams happen to join up there. Maybe they don't like Carapaz, they don't like Ineos, and that's what happened. How about Carapaz and Carthy? What about their tactics and strategy? Well, they attacked inside the last 3 kilometers, but it wasn't until Mas went at 2.7 that Carapaz actually blasted out. And once again, he got a quick 20 seconds, even narrowed his potential to a win around 13 seconds. But in the end, he only got 21 at the line. Carthy lost time to Carapaz and gained 6 seconds on Roglic. Did these two leave it at too late? Well, they got rid of Sepp quickly when the attack started. So you're thinking, well, if they had actually known that, maybe they attack earlier. I mean, if Sepp was out of the picture from 4 to 5 kilometers to go and Hofstadter isn't available till around the 2K point, that's a lot of road and a lot of wind to try to work your magic and see if you could have Roglic actually falter. You can't expect to get, over a minute back in 3 kilometers. And so I think that they messed up. And some of it is that fear of striking too soon and losing your podium spot, which is something I expected more from Carthy, since he had never been in this situation, than Carapaz. Carapaz had won the Giro last year. He wasn't, he's obviously there close. Why not throw the haymaker from a little bit further out and hope? What's the worst that can happen? I guess you get 3rd instead of 2nd. That's something you may not want because maybe you have because Carthy had, remember, 2 different times. I think it was stage 6, and then on the Angliru again, he had put time into Carapaz. So it could be done, and Carthy was coming on stronger, and he also did in the time trial, coming on stronger and stronger. So maybe you're concerned about that. But once again, I think both of those guys should have given a little bit of a chance. And once again, you had Mike Woods, was not there for Carthy. I mentioned that earlier in the week when he was striking out on Wednesday, trying to get the stage win. He's off in this break with pretty renowned guys, and when Tim Willems ends up winning, and I'm like, is this going to come back to haunt them when you need Hugh Carthy needs a rider, a climber, and what, you going to put TJ in the mix there? There's no one else on that team that's going to do it but Mike Woods, and Mike Woods wasn't there. Maybe if you have him, you can correlate something. Carthy takes off at 4 to 5K to go, and if he starts to falter, you've got Mike Woods at least to try to pace him and set him up to regain and to stay with the group. Didn't happen. He wasn't there. Carapaz, he's on his own too, but he's legit. And I'll just say on that, well, we'll get back to that in a little bit. How about so once again, it was a great tour. I thoroughly enjoyed the Vuelta. I was actually in my heart pulling for, well, there's a few things. Pulling for Roglic due to the work Sepp Kuss had done. It's wonderful to see that as an American. Pulling against Carapaz due to the fact that he rides for Ineos. That's a horrible thing to say, but it's just kind of had that feeling. And I'm also pulling for Hugh Carthy. Once again, though, I am very impressed with Carapaz in his riding. His attacking, he's similar to a Roglic. They both have pop to them. Because they can win little sprint finishes or be close to it. He's got some pop. He's got a great climb. It seems to be a good guy. I really enjoyed the documentary I saw with him last year. Seems to be a decent guy. And he left Movistar. How can you fault the guy for doing any of that? Let's go to the Madrid Challenge and kind of just look at, I didn't do too much here as far as the results go. I mean, I could look at the stages here. Stage 2, he had a time trial, and Lisa Brunauer wins over Trek Cigaretto duel of Lisa Longo Borghini and Ellen Van Dijk. Annemiek van Vleuten in 4th, Leah Kirchhoff, Sarah Roy, Mika Kruger, Alice Barnes. I'm trying to see down here where Alexis Ryan in 18th place. So going into the last stage, and I'm going to end up watching these, and then I'll basically report back to it on how that all went. Last stage was won in a sprint by Elisa Balsamo. Lorena Weebs, she was first on stage 1, if you remember. Marta Bastanelli, Chara Cassani, Silvia Zanardi, Barbara Gershana, and Lisa Brunauer, and tied there. So big sprint, all of them getting the same time down to 20th place or so. Alexis Ryan, did you end up making it in there? No, she didn't have, I don't know what happened to her on the day. So the GC, the overall there goes to Lisa Brunauer. I think she's a German national champion, and got some Trek City Freddo riders. No American. Alexis, where'd you go? I don't see you in the top. But we'll do a recap of that. I actually want to watch that race, see if there's anything excitement that I missed, and then give a little report back on that. Because hey, we've got winter coming up. We got a lot of spare time. Do we? Because I don't think Tour Down Under is going to happen, and who knows about racing in our own. How about the season of Roglic? Tour La Lune win, Tour de France second place, narrowly to Pogacar. Liège, he wins a monument, don't forget. The Vuelta, he wins that. I mean, come on, that's a stellar year, right? His strategy of gaining bonus seconds over the course of the race for both the Tour de France and the Vuelta really paid off. Well, paid off much more in the Tour and the Vuelta, I would imagine. He would have lost the Vuelta, I think, without it. I think I saw where he got 48 seconds or so in bonus time, and Carapaz got 20. I don't remember what the exactly, but if you add all those in or you strip them out, Carapaz is actually in the lead overall. So, but hey, that's kind of that's the strategy. And there were bonus seconds on offer for each and every stage, so they all knew what was going on. Just saw last night, or maybe it was this morning. I don't know. Time's confusing to me right now. On Twitter, the Jumbo Visma team, they did they basically were filming the entire Vuelta. So they released the first 6 stages of this 12-minute little bit of the documentary. Then they're going to do another, I think 12, 15 minutes today, and then out to Tuesday. So they're going to release this whole thing. It was really well done. And it shows each stage, and they have a little behind the scenes. So they're talking to Sepp. They're really, the panic because it ends on stage 6 where Roglic can't get his jacket on, and the panic of the team managers trying to get that team back up there. That's something I think you missed from the coverage. I didn't really realize how bad he was. 30 seconds off, and they were just flying, like a team time trial, trying to get Roglic back up to the top. Could have been really bad there. So keep that in mind, and I'll maybe try to do a full review of the whole thing when we see it. So, it's part of the scenario to get these bonus times. Roglic, 4 or 5 stage wins there. Really good. Ineos, they blew the Tour de France. They blew apart the Giro, and then they almost blew up Roglic at the Vuelta. So you give them a little credit too. You start coming away from the Tour, and you're like, you got the Rafa Majka win. Did Carapaz win a stage there? I don't remember, but it was kind of like not looking so good because you had Bernal blow up and everything else that was happening. News for Ineos / Steam Sky. What drama? Yes, Dan Hughes says, what drama? Yes. You're saying it wasn't drama? I'm saying, because you have a question mark there. That tour was great drama. The last stage was great drama up the Vuelta, not the second to last stage. I was watching that and kind of, getting nervous because it was a lot of fun. Anyway, back to Ineos. Chris Froome was awarded, was it 2011 or 2012? Vuelta a España overall. Remember, he was second that year, and Bradley Williams was third. And what was the Spanish guy that won it? They ended up getting DQ'd. And so Froome now is the provisional, not just the provisional, I guess he's the overall winner of the Vuelta from back then. And it was his first Grand Tour win, but retroactive later. How about some winners and losers? Some winners. Carthy and EF, they win in all 3 Grand Tours. 1 Tour de France win, Danny Martinez. 2 in the Giro, Caicedo and Guerrero. And then they, with those duck uniforms. And then 3 wins in the Vuelta by Hugh Carthy, Mike Woods, and what's his name? Magnus Cort Nielsen the other day. Plus, they get a podium and inside a minute to the winner. Remember, the top 2, Roglic and Carapaz. Roglic, defending champion. He's been, third in the Giro. He's been third in the Tour, or fourth, and second. And and Carapaz obviously won the Giro. That's no slouch of a top 2 there. So getting Carthy inside a minute to that is very well done. This is stepping stone. Sometimes you see riders make a shot up there and then they kind of nothing left to him. But I tend to think the way Carthy time trialed and obviously climbed, that it's more than just a guy that kind of hung on and was able to finish with everybody. I mean, he put his own stamp on and winning was obviously very impressive up the Angliru. Some losers. It's more winners here though. You had Dan Martin, 4th in the Vuelta and a stage win. I think that's his top ever Grand Tour finish. So he was very consistent, bleeding off a little bit of time there near the end, but did very well. Enric Mas, 5th in the white jersey. I believe he was 5th in the Tour de France too. That's really good back-to-back Grand Tours. So good for him. Losers of the season. And I'll do my whole season stuff here later on, but just kind of thinking of it here. Peter Sagan, I mean, 1 stage at the Giro, but really a year that you would compare it with Movistar in a sense. I mean, sure, he won, but he was close a lot. And with the stature and the expectations, you expect him to be winning a lot more, and he didn't. And same goes to Movistar. They're kind of the same way. If they didn't have the Vuelta, kind of a season. Valverde, 0 wins, I believe, on the season. That's just taking it from my memory. So that's all we have for you today, folks. Once again, thanks for joining Between Two Wheels podcast. This is episode 211. I hope you enjoyed the Vuelta. I enjoyed it a ton. I think we have some World Cup, maybe some track stuff coming up, but other than that, really nothing else going on. So I hope you guys get out. We're getting a little winter here in Northern California, and hope you're getting out on some rides. Get fit, stay healthy as much as you can. Take care.